Growing up, I remember going to China every year to visit my grandparents. They lived in a too-small apartment, but my grandpa never failed to make those visits feel freeing. He took me on motorcycle rides, bought me street food breakfasts, and always manifested out of thin air whenever I said his name. The last time I ever talked to him, he didn't remember my name. He had developed Alzheimer's, and shortly after that, he was gone. First, the person that I remembered him to be, and then the body that we were left with. Alzheimer's is one of the most destructive and prevalent diseases in the world today, but we still know frighteningly little about it. So to educate you, we first need to understand what Alzheimer's is. Simply put, Alzheimer's is a progressive and continuous decrease in cognitive function, with visual symptoms that range from memory lapses all the way to forgetting basic survival functions. Now, as obvious as these visual symptoms are, it's important to know that biological symptoms can appear up to 20 years before that, in the form of plaque building around brain cells and a decrease in brain volume. Another thing that stumps scientists is the fact that Alzheimer's is more likely to develop in certain groups. In a lecture from Dr. Sharon J. Shaw, we learned that 33% of those over 85 develop Alzheimer's, and nearly 2/3 of Alzheimer's patients are women. Finally, we also learned that certain ethnic groups, such as Hispanics and Africans, are more protected from Alzheimer's, while other groups, such as East Asians, are more likely to develop it. The question is then, if we know so much about Alzheimer's, why don't we have anything to show for it? The basic answer is that Alzheimer's is insanely difficult to study. Not only does almost every hypothesis require long-term studies to prove anything, the most useful clinical tests are often uninsured and not available to the general public. And current treatment of biological symptoms don't show any notable improvement. It's not a stretch to say we don't know anything about Alzheimer's. In a quote from Dr. Katrin Adriasen, a professor on neurodegenerative diseases, we find that she says, "We expected to see everything much, much, much worse." But no, it was the complete flip opposite. She, alongside top scientists, were working on a lab conducted on Alzheimer's. And even still, they're stumped when it comes to understanding neurodegenerative diseases. This can make it sound like it's a hopeless situation. But there are things that you can do to prevent your chances of getting Alzheimer's, and also a recent breakthrough in its treatment and research. Diet, stress, sleep, head trauma, exercise, and education are all risk factors that are within individual control, and it all boils down to using your brain or losing it. There's also, beyond prevention, there's been a recent development that could be a potential cure. A Stanford lab has found that reactivating the astrocytes, or powerhouses of the brain within mice, can actually restore sugar consumption levels within the hippocampus, or memory center, to normal levels. This lab has shown positive results not only in the minds of mice with Alzheimer's, but also in the brain cells of dementia patients. In a quote from Dr. Shannon McCauley, we find that she hopes maybe this can make your astrocytes and your neurons work a little bit better, so that you can function a little bit better. Maybe you can plateau those memory declines or get a little executive function back. Maybe. McCauley reminds us to maintain realistic expectations when it comes to this treatment, because there's still a long way to go before we know whether or not this is viable for humans. As our technology and knowledge about Alzheimer's grows, so does the chance that we finally find a cure to this disease. This is something that will or already does affect someone that you know. So understanding its dangers and ways to prevent it can make one of the biggest differences in your life. Thank you.